Alright, in this video, I wanted to talk about cultural relativism. What it is a person's belief and patterns that should be understood based off their own culture. The reason why I wanted to talk about this today is because I feel like as society is changing, some of these things are going to start becoming really important. And so I feel like every culture has like standard or common practices that everyone does on a large scheme, but how everyone does it is a little bit different. So for instance, let's talk about like eating and drinking. When it comes down to eating, every culture has different eating patterns. Some cultures may find that eating fried crickets is really good, while some other cultures may not. Some cultures may like eating, beef, while some cultures do not. Some cultures, like pigs and eat pork, and some cultures do not. So when it comes down to these kind of choices based off their culture, whoever makes those choices based off of that is technically correct. If I don't want to eat pork based off my cultural experience, that should be validated. And so when it comes down to other common practices, we'll go over a few more, but then we'll talk about why we're talking about this. Another way or another common practice that every culture probably has is a way of bartering, so exchanging. So here in the US, of course, we exchange money, and it's kind of funny because a lot of places after COVID stopped taking cash. You would think cash should be it, but it's usually money. Usually from either a debit card, credit card, or some places do take cash. But this will allow me to exchange for the food and commodities that I need to survive. Other places may be willing to trade skills, products, or time in order to get something in exchange. I know I saw a trend where I know in some states here, some people are offering, classes for food or for basically different resources. So people are, trading that off. In other countries, they may trade off actual, produce for produce, or bartering is just a different thing between all cultures, but it's still the same practice. Another one would include curing or aiding to illnesses and health. Of course, here in the US, everyone pretty much goes to a hospital or clinic whenever they feel sick. In other cultures, they may call it something different, or they may have different practices on what to do before you seek out, help additionally from other places. Or they may not have the infrastructure to have that. So if that happens, that may mean that they have to rest in a certain area that's different from the rest of the house so that they can heal and become better, or they just stay in bed all day and heal and come back whenever they feel better, versus how other cultures may do it, where they may see that if you're too sick, they may just off you, you know what I'm saying, because they don't want that to spread to everyone else. So common practice. Another one, and these would be the last couple, would probably be hygiene. Everyone definitely believes in different practices on that. Clothing. I saw an image the other day where it was two women, basically. One was wearing a whole dress that covered her face and only had her eyes revealing, and then the other one was wearing a bikini, but she had sunglasses on. And it was funny because the woman with the bikini said, "Oh, the woman that's wearing that dress, she must be in a male-dominated country. That's unfortunate for her because she can't show off her body." While the other person that's showing off, or that has the dress on, says, "Dang, you're showing off everything but your eyes. So you must also be in a male-dominated country." It was just interesting to see how clothing can be perceived in two different cultures. But in that instance, that example that I gave you is basically just showing patriarchy, right? But it's still two different practices. They're coming from two different cultures, and they're still having like the same kind of negative connotation to it. And then this is why we're gonna go to this part a little bit later in the video. But when it comes down to society, like I said, a lot of changes are being made, so that's why I wanted to talk about cultural relativism. I don't know if I'm saying that word right. It sounds right, so I'm gonna keep going with it. But yeah, this should be an important topic, because as things change and you challenge them to someone's culture, these social norms that we're starting to have can be true and untrue based off one's culture. So knowing the cultural differences between different people are going to allow for better cooperation. But if you don't, then you start to get the negatives, and that's kind of where that example I was talking about with the whole, depending on how much clothes you're wearing, it doesn't really matter. The other person's still going to perceive it as, you're in a male-dominated place. When it comes down to things like that, I'm going to just say it. Most countries, most societies are going to be male-dominated because they kind of have to be. And as society's trying to like change that and make it differently and make it not the norm, culturally a lot of people are challenging this, because in the past, men have always been the one to like kind of take care of the home or do things that, not take care of the home, but basically provide for the home or get the things needed to be able for someone to like make it a home and be able to raise kids and do all that, yada yada yada. But as society is changing, we're now coming to a point where men and women can both do the same thing, or at least that's what people are trying to do. But some cultures are coming in and saying like, no, that is not the way that we want to do it. And because of that, I don't know, this is the part where cultural relativism starts to clash with like moral relativism. So basically, morally, people are always going to have like their own personal bias about something based off their own experience, how they were raised, and just other factors that go around it. And so when you start to operate around that and you start to project these ideas, or you start to interact with others around you, you just need to be open that some people may accept it, some people may not. And when it comes down to, I guess, the last part that I wanted to kind of wrap this all up and why this is important is because as we make more progress and we step more into the future, I think it is going to be important that cultural standards are still set based off of whatever standards you had in the past, and they shouldn't be diminished based off of social norms, because some social norms are going to, I guess, destroy a lot of cultures, and it's going to not allow for people to have their own definition of success, and they're not going to be able to define their own patterns because they're trying to follow everyone else, knowing that culturally it does not match how they were raised or people around them were raised. So when you're starting to think about which one you want to do in terms of the practices that you want to have or the patterns that you want to have in your life, part of it is going to be you thinking, how does your culture accept this? And then part of you is going to want to see how society or like different people's morals are going to also align. And you're going to have to make a decision on what parts or what patterns you want to practice. And as you make those decisions, be open, be willing to talk about it, be able to state the reasons why you practice it, and be able to educate others on it. And then the same goes for people who are kind of coming from that moral relativism where, if you have personal bias, you should be open and willing to know that other people are going to practice other things because of their culture, and they're going to do things differently because of their culture. And because of that, you can't tell them that their practice is wrong or that their practice is like incorrect, and they can't do the same to you. But when you start to like do the thing where you start colliding everything together, and this is when you start interacting with like your neighborhoods, your communities, and social groups, you need to be willing to just put different parts in, different parts out, be able to discuss it, and be able to cooperate with each other better. Hopefully this has all made sense. Thank you. See you in the next one. Bye.